A shift beneath the surface in the heart of Willow Creek, a town where tradition whispers from every front porch and routine rarely breaks stride. Change crept in unnoticed, not with sirens or headlines, but on the quiet steps of a woman who didn't need permission to walk with purpose. This isn't just a story about a misunderstanding in a grocery store. It's a reflection of how perception, bias, and silence can shape the moments that define us. It's about power that doesn't shout and dignity that doesn't flinch. And it all begins on an ordinary Thursday morning when a confident black woman walked into a store like she owned the place, because, as it turns out, she did. A confident stranger enters the familiar. It was a slow, quiet Thursday morning in Willow Creek, the kind where you could hear the birds chirping louder than the footsteps in the town's corner store. The bell above the door jingled softly as a woman stepped in. Her presence wasn't loud, but it was powerful. Mid-30s, polished in a cream blazer and matching slacks, locks pinned neatly behind her head, she moved like someone with purpose, not rushed, not hesitant. Just aware. She didn't look around in curiosity like a lost tourist, nor did she seem impressed by the outdated candy racks and dusty ceiling fans. Her eyes moved with the calculated precision of someone studying the bones of a place, like an architect reviewing a building before renovation. To the few customers lingering in the produce section, she may have simply looked like someone new in town, but to Randy, the white store clerk leaning against the counter, her presence sent off a different signal, one he wasn't ready for. The watcher begins his hunt. Randy sat behind the counter with a half-eaten donut and a phone scrolling through memes. When the woman first walked in, he barely noticed, but something made him look again. Maybe it was how calm she seemed, or maybe it was because she didn't fit the usual pattern he was used to seeing in this neighborhood. She was too confident, he thought, too sure of herself. And when she started moving through the aisles without grabbing a cart or a basket, just her phone in one hand and a notepad app open, his internal alarm went off. He muttered under his breath and stood up slowly, trying to act casual. She moved to aisle 3. He followed, pretending to fix a crooked display of soup cans. She stopped near the dairy section, making a voice memo to herself. That's when Randy's suspicion became certainty. She's scoping the place out, he thought, maybe for a theft or worse. What he didn't know was that he was the one being silently evaluated. Observations in aisles and shadows, she glided silently past the snack shelves, her fingers brushing along the edge of a cereal box, not out of interest, but instinct. Everything in the store, from the flickering light above aisle 5 to the outdated pricing signs, told her a story. And she listened closely. Pulling out her phone, she opened her notes app and whispered softly, lighting needs replacing, signage outdated, expand produce section. Each word was measured, precise. Randy, meanwhile, was trailing her like a ghost in work boots. He tried to look busy, adjusting chip bags, realigning gum packets, but his eyes never left her, and she noticed. She always noticed. Her back remained straight, her pace even. She was used to the feeling of being followed, but this time it felt ironic. He thinks I'm a threat, she thought, a faint smile tugging at her lips. She continued making mental notes. Let him watch. This was her test, and his too. He just didn't know it yet. The accusation that crossed a line by the time she reached the frozen foods section, Randy couldn't hold it in any longer. Every instinct, every bias, every flicker of doubt boiled to the surface. Stepping out from behind a soda display, he cleared his throat. "Ma'am," he said, trying to inject authority into his voice, "I'm gonna have to ask you to either make a purchase or leave." She turned, slow and deliberate. Her expression didn't change. No surprise, no fear, just calm. "Excuse me," she asked. "You've been in here a while, recording stuff, looking around, acting suspicious," he said, hesitating at the end. Her eyes narrowed just a little. "Suspicious," she echoed, her voice still soft. "Because I'm observing, or because I'm not shopping the way you expect me to?" Randy shifted uncomfortably. I didn't mean it like that." She took a step forward, her gaze steady. "Then tell me, Randy, because that's your name, right? Do you follow every customer around like this, or only the ones who look like me?" The question hung in the air like smoke. And suddenly, Randy was the one under scrutiny. Calm confrontation with a razor's edge, the tension in the aisle could have sliced through steel. Randy's hands fidgeted at his sides, unsure whether to apologize or double down, but the woman in front of him didn't flinch. Her voice was still calm, too calm, and that's what unnerved him most. "I walk in, I observe, I take notes," she said, pausing just long enough for the weight of her words to land. "That's suspicious, to you." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. "You didn't ask my name, you didn't ask if I needed help. You followed me, assumed the worst, then decided it was your right to police my presence." Randy tried to recover. "Look, I've seen people steal before, and—" She cut him off gently. "And they always looked like me, right?" The quiet was deafening. A mother and child shopping nearby paused to listen. Her next words weren't loud, but they landed with authority. "You judged me before I said a word. That's not just bad customer service. That's bad character." The reveal that changed everything before Randy could sputter out a reply. The front door jingled again, and in walked a familiar face. Larry, the current store owner. He was cheerful as always, oblivious to the storm brewing in aisle 5. "There she is." Larry beamed, heading straight toward the woman. "Naomi, hope everything's looking good so far." Randy blinked. "Naomi." Larry clapped a hand on Randy's shoulder. "You've met her already, huh, Randy? This is Naomi Bennett. She's finalizing the purchase of the store tomorrow. You're looking at your new boss." For a moment the world stopped. Naomi turned to Randy, that same calm expression on her face, but now with the quiet weight of power behind it. "I was just getting a feel for how the store runs," she said smoothly, her gaze steady on him, "and how the staff treats people they don't recognize." Larry laughed, missing the undertone completely. "She's gonna do great things here, Randy. Big plans." Randy couldn't move, couldn't speak, because in trying to catch a thief, he exposed his own ignorance in front of the new owner. Power shifts without raising a voice. Randy stood frozen, a knot tightening in his throat as Naomi's identity sank in. The woman he followed, doubted, and nearly ejected wasn't a threat. She was the future of the store. The new owner, and she had seen everything. Naomi turned from Larry and faced Randy with a quiet elegance that carried more weight than shouting ever could. "I value respect in my workplace," she said, her tone smooth but unyielding. "Not just for customers, but among staff, too." Randy's eyes darted to Larry for support, but Larry only chuckled, still unaware of what had just transpired. "She's sharp, huh? Already got a feel for the place." And Naomi nodded slowly, her eyes still on Randy. "Yes, I've seen enough. No threats, no harsh words, just the kind of poised disappointment that stings deeper than anger ever could." Randy, pale and still, realized in that moment he hadn't just misjudged a customer. He had misjudged the boss. A humbling silence. Randy felt like the ground beneath him had turned to quicksand. The same aisles he once patrolled with assumed authority now felt like walls closing in. His assumptions, his bias, his reflex to suspect each had played out in front of someone with the power to decide his future. Naomi didn't need to raise her voice. Her silence was deliberate, surgical. The type of silence that echoes in your head long after it ends. She walked toward the register without saying another word, leaving Randy standing there, a man stripped of certainty. Larry, ever the optimist, finally sensed the tension but was too late to stop it. "Well, Randy, I'm sure you'll make a great impression once things get going, eh?" Naomi glanced back over her shoulder, one eyebrow raised. "That depends," she said coolly. "Some impressions are hard to undo." Randy swallowed hard. No comeback, no defense, because deep down he knew he'd already said enough. A subtle warning, loud and clear as Naomi reached the counter. She placed her phone gently on the surface, scanned the store once more, and then turned to Larry. "Tomorrow, once the final documents are signed, I'll need the full employee list, rolls, records, everything." Larry nodded enthusiastically, unaware of the underlying tension. "Absolutely. I'll get that over to you tonight." Naomi didn't look back at Randy, but her next words pierced through him like a blade wrapped in velvet, especially those with frontline customer interaction. "I want to be sure our values are reflected in the people representing the brand." Randy's breath caught. No names were mentioned, no fingers were pointed, but the message was unmistakable. Accountability was coming, not with drama or revenge, but with standards. Naomi wasn't there to scold, she was there to lead. And the first thing she was doing was cleaning house. Sometimes the most dangerous person in the room isn't the loudest. It's the one making note, quietly writing your last chapter while planning their first. The grand reopening and a town's awakening 1 week later, the town awoke to something new. The store on Fifth Avenue had changed. A fresh coat of paint, new signage, softer lighting, and a brand. New name above the door, Bennett Market. Inside, the shelves were brighter, the music warmer, and, most notably, Randy's presence was gone. In his place were smiling, diverse faces. Naomi herself stood near the entrance, welcoming every customer like family. She shook hands with the elderly, greeted kids by name, and to the black and brown residents who once felt invisible in that store, her presence was validation. What Randy thought was a casual power trip became the very reason he was left behind. And what Naomi endured in silence had turned into a statement that would echo through Willow Creek. Assumptions have consequences, and ownership has a face they didn't expect, because Naomi didn't just take over a store. She transformed it from the inside out, and the town would never forget it. More than just a store. And what happened in that store didn't just change a few paint colors or shift a roster. It shifted the entire energy of a place long overdue for self-reflection. Naomi Bennett didn't seek to embarrass. She didn't seek revenge. She simply held a mirror to a quiet prejudice and then chose to rise above it. With poise, vision, and action, and Randy. He became a name not remembered for cruelty, but for being the cautionary footnote in a much bigger legacy, a legacy of change. Because in a world where too many doors remained closed or watched too closely, Naomi didn't knock. She walked in and claimed what was already hers. Not just a store, but the story, and she rewrote it aisle by aisle.